What to do, YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the third album by T.I. Basically, this album is called Urban Legend, and it came out in the fall of 2004. Now, T.I. in late 2003 dropped a hit album called Trap Muzik, which helped kick off the subgenre trap music back in the day. It was actually pretty early in that stage. It's just because 2003 was still kind of ran by like 50 Cent and Eminem, Dr. Dre, Busta Rhymes, some of those type folks. But this was a particularly large and noteworthy project, Trap Muzik. Got to the fourth single, and ultimately I want to say the promotion of that album got cut short just because he went to prison for a little while in early 2004. He got out later in the year and immediately went to this album, which consolidated like getting like this trap music stuff ushered forward a lot more. Maybe it doesn't have like the sheer hits of maybe it doesn't have the sheer trap craziness of 24s and Be Easy and some of those type ones, but I do feel like the singles are pretty much in a lot of ways upstaged. They're just a lot more commercial, where I feel like Trap Muzik was a lot more trap oriented type sound, where just more underground and kind of low key kind of singles. The songs like Bring 'Em Out is a more song with bravado. That was T.I.'s biggest hit at the time. Has a lot of flashy kind of triumphant bravado about it. ASAP's a pretty militant song. You Don't Know Me is pretty much like the sequel to 24s in a lot of ways, very similar to that kind of rambunctious, kind of defiant kind of energy. And I would have to say that Motivations is kind of a militant club bop. But yeah, I just would have to say like some of the songs, like Rubber Band Man has a sequel, but it's not really a single. And then I would say like Let's Get Away has a sequel also, but it doesn't really have a single on here. So T.I. at least gives like folks what they want. If you like the song off of Trap Muzik, chances are there's a song of it on this particular album, but it's just in different variations. So T.I. succeeded in trying some new stuff on this album and also bringing back some old faces as far as that kind of is concerned. DJ Toomp is on here. DJ Toomp is on here. David Banner's on here. Jazzy Faye is on here. Folks like that were there last time. And this is kind of the concept. This is a pretty interesting project. I do like the concept. I mean, Wikipedia says that this album only made it to the third single, but I count Motivation as a single because that was the next one that was going to make the effort to try to get there. So this is kind of the concept about it. There's actually, my opinion, for it. And I almost want to say that there might have been like even grounds to have wanted to make a fifth single. I don't remember what it could have been, but I think that the promotion was going to last. But basically, this album's promotion went right into like the promotion for the PSC album, which I reviewed back in June, which kicked off with I'm a King and then went to Do Your Thing and some of those type songs. So that's just kind of the concept. So T.I. just had a pretty rampant run between 2003 and like 2008 or so. He was there quite a bit. So that's just really the concept. This is a pretty stellar album. This is actually going to get a rather high score. The more I look after this, is pretty much this was an album that he wasn't quite king yet. And this is an album where he was on the grounds to start being king of the South and that type of stuff. And definitely by 2006, it was an easy pairing to kind of see that kind of happen. But I look after this was still kind of a burgeoning record that had better hits than on Trap Muzik, but I do kind of feel like the songs on Trap Muzik were just more rowdy, at least in the singles. Now, I remember saying about Trap Muzik back in December that it did have some great singles, but the album cuts were kind of not quite as fleshed together and just kind of felt a lot more homely and just kind of more day commute in terms of like a hustler's mentality. But I look after this album, it has far superior album cuts. It's a lot of good album quality type stuff, and it's just a real kind of, some of it's commercial, but really for the most part, that's about one of the few things to really nitpick about this album, is just being able to say that this doesn't have like the underground kind of trap type feels, apart from maybe ASAP and You Don't Know Me and some of those type ones. But it is good stuff here. So we'll go ahead and talk about the singles. Yeah, so there's a lot to talk about on this album. But the first single is Bring 'Em Out. This is a brassy, triumphant club cut, has lots of good bravado about it, and it's just a vintage 2000s era night venue hit. Would definitely kind of say it's just got that nice kind of feel. It samples a Jay-Z song, and Jay-Z samples Biggie. Biggie was the first to kind of have that Bring 'Em Out kind of line. It's hard to yell when the barrel's in your mouth. That's from a Biggie song. That's kind of a hard to find Biggie song at that, but it's just kind of the concept. Nice kind of triumphant kind of, this is a pretty glossy T.I. song. This is probably one of the more defining T.I. songs of the 2000s, up there with Rubber Band Man, 24s, What You Know, some of those type ones, Top Back, some of those type moments. This is a top 10 single. It's a pretty good highlight about it. Real kind of commercial fare. Just a lot more presentable and pretty much like a song that was getting close to having T.I. become like it was basically a song that was getting close to having T.I. become like a household name. So it did a lot of damage. Just a good concept of it. Just really kind of real kind of yeah, this triumphant kind of sounding song, just in a lot of ways as to how that goes. You Don't Know Me is the second single. This is a trap jump highlight similar to the trap music stuff, specifically 24s. It's an evening cut with some busy jive. I kind of feel like about this song, it has some defiant vibes about it. Gets back to that underground kind of edgy feel that trap music kind of had. This is a real kind of more low key kind of cut. It was kind of a murky song, and I do like it. If you did miss the style of Be Easy and 24s, some of that type of stuff, is just a good song in that sort of pitch. But there's not an overabundance of songs like this. It kind of, I mean, T.I. knew that he was going to start breaking out and reaching mainstream, so this is kind of the concept. But this is a vintage kind of T.I. song. This is produced by DJ Toomp, so this is vintage T.I. here. Good stuff. The third single is ASAP, which is kind of a disappointment that this song kind of underperformed, but it's a militant kind of looming evening club cut with some good brooding energy about it, and it's just an easy hit. I would definitely say this is a standard kind of night out at a nightclub and that type of stuff. Good militant kind of feel. It's very composed T.I. This is the sort of stuff that kind of just had him just having a good degree of elegance. I mean, it's less rowdy than You Don't Know Me and more composed than Bring 'Em Out, but I do like the concept of just getting some of these ones. It just has a real militant kind of feel. This real nice one for kind of stepping out. It just has a lot of finesse towards it. I would definitely say it's just an overall nice one. It's too bad this song didn't do better. I can see why, because it wasn't that commercial. It just had a real kind of pounding and dark looming, swirling kind of beat. But I just look at the concept that it is a pretty nice one. It has a great hook on here. It's just an overall nice kind of late night out kind of feel, typical vintage 2000s type fare, but it's just kind of more of like a low key kind of single. It's definitely one that I would feel like maybe actually the sequel to Be Easy, but just more jivey and that type of stuff. Be Easy was kind of more of like lazy swag, but this one's a little bit more militant and kind of has a little bit more jive about it. Just the concept of it, so it's a nice one. The fourth single, which was kind of paired on to ASAP, was Motivation. This is a nice one. I'm considering this a single because I think this is the one that they intended if like popularity grew for this song. I would say Motivation is another militant kind of club bop. This has a nice kind of Motivation is a militant kind of club bop, very composed and attentive. This is like a regular night out, vintage 2000s club music. And I would say this has a nice kind of synthy kind of beat on here. Kind of has some good synths on the song and some good flutes on the song or whatever that happens to be. It's just a good production as to how that kind of goes. But to talk about the 17 songs in this album, there's 13 and a half songs out of 17 I wound up recommending. So that's pretty damn good. The only 3 songs I really don't recommend are just The King, Praying for Help, and Why You Mad at Me. The only 3 songs I don't recommend are The King, Praying for Help, and Why You Mad at Me. And I feel like Praying for Help and Why You Mad at Me are just kind of more kind of homely songs that just don't nail that edge. I mean, T.I. did songs like this on Trap Muzik also, like Doing My Job and some of those type moments. I feel like the songs on Trap Muzik probably feel like the songs that he did on Trap Muzik probably fared better, but these are just kind of like more ruminating and kind of like a more upbeat kind of sense that just don't work quite as well for me. And then The King, I used to like this song. It was a pretty good intro, just kind of another just kind of bravado and kind of triumphant sounding beat, but that the song kind of phased out for me. It's not quite as enjoyable as much, but it is a decent song. It's not enough of one to recommend. So to talk about some of the highlights on here, I feel like Limelight is like a gleaming, leery, kind of dusky night venue gem. This is a great smoking song, and it has a good PSC cameo on here. It's just a very kind of this dusky and this kind of murky kind of feeling of a beat on here. It just really kind of has the concept of like a nice kind of strip club jam where women are just kind of winding and that type of stuff. This is a kind of slow dance kind of song, or a VIP kind of smoke session, some of those type moments, just for laid back kind of feels and this kind of typical kind of leery kind of feels as far as that kind of goes. Just a nice one. Chilling with My Bitch is kind of like the pseudo sequel to Let's Get Away. It's just another nice highlight. This is a lazy summer heat kind of bop. It's just a regular ladies jam at that, and it just has a smooth hook, and it's an easy kind of vacay kind of song, I would definitely say. So if you like Let's Get Away, if you like Let's Get Away by T.I., this is like the pseudo sequel to that one, and it's just kind of got that same lazy, I mean, Chilling with My Bitch is a lot more of like a lazy kind of day, where Let's Get Away had a lot more jive towards it, but it is kind of a good pairing with that. Just a decent kind of sequel to it. I mean, I can see folks not liking it as much just because it just doesn't have the pizzazz of that song, but it is a nice one. It's a good relaxation and vacay kind of song. I wouldn't overlook it. Is kind of the thing. Get Your Shit Together is a pretty nice one. It's too bad that Lil Kim didn't drop a verse on here, but she makes kind of a nice minor cameo. It's a lively, kind of militant and composed kind of club bopper, that type of stuff. It's similar to ASAP in a lot of ways and has pretty good pace. It's a little bit more of a grading beat. I mean, I'm not going to say that as much to knock it from being a song or being an almost song or something like that, or a great knocking it down to like an almost song, but it is a pretty solid kind of. It's similar to ASAP and Motivation, and like the biggest song that Get Your Shit Together is similar to is ASAP. So it's just kind of got that kind of feel with just like maybe a peg or two less of like an addictive beat compared to that. But it is a nice one. Just a real lively kind of club cut that's very militant and composed. So it's a nice one. What They Do with BG, who BG doesn't get talked about enough. He's been in prison for like years and years and years now, but this is kind of like the concept about it. What They Do is kind of an offhanded and out and about kind of cut. Definitely like this one. It's a nice city hopping jive about it, and it's just a decent little time. I didn't really listen to this song that much back. I didn't listen to this song that much back in the day, but it just kind of has like some lively kind of saxophone kind of jazziness towards it that just kind of has like a good flair about it. I do like the concept of this kind of just being like an offhanded and kind of random kind of day. It just kind of feels like I do like the concept of how that kind of went. Um, this kind of one where you just maybe you're getting an alcohol or a drink or something like that that you haven't gotten in like 5 or 6 months, or maybe you're getting an alcohol that you haven't had in like 5 or 6 months, or you're talking to a chick that you haven't talked in a while, something like that. Just that kind of concept of just kind of an offhanded, kind of random, tertiary kind of day, I would almost say, in terms of how that kind of goes. Another song that kind of has a sequel towards it is Countdown. This is a nice sequel to Rubber Band Man. It's the same kind of vibes, same kind of like sports game, baseball game type vibes about it. Very similar to like Rubber Band Man in a lot of ways. Sports game and outdoor jive it kind of has, and it's just a nice kind of, it has some nice pep about it. So I would say this is a pretty good one. It's not quite as hooky as like Rubber Band Man, but it is kind of like if you need another song, if you like Rubber Band Man a whole bunch, I would say that Countdown is a pretty good song to kind of hit up. It's just not quite as hooky and single ready, but it's just kind of in the same variation, kind of like Chilling with My Bitch was similar to Let's Get Away. It's kind of the concept. Stand Up is probably one of my favorite songs on this album. It has Trick Daddy, Lil Jon, and Lil Wayne on here. Just a good example of one. This is like a mellow kind of crunk bop. So I like the fact that T.I. was trying to embrace crunk a little bit, but I like the fact that T.I. was trying to embrace crunk a little bit, but he just kind of had a more mellow version of it. It's just kind of like a southern, it's just kind of like a dirty south kind of bopper, I would have to say. It's a mellow kind of crunk bop with some mellow kind of crunk bop with a nice bell beat on there. Just very lazy, good verses, stock night out, and it's just very soothing song. I feel this is just a stock night out, and I feel like this is a very soothing song. It's an overall nice gem. All three of the verses do well. Lil Wayne, I forgot that Lil Wayne pairs up with T.I. every now and then. This is some good variations of that, so that's some good stuff. Trick Daddy did good. Get Loose is a nice song. That's another one that kind of is a good pairing is the T.I. and Nelly songs. So Get Loose is kind of like a jivey, riveting club hopper. This is probably one of the most lively club songs on the album. This is a nice boppish tempo, regular night out, and it's just kind of a strip club gem, I would have to say. This is an easy kind of song to get women dancing and that type of stuff. It's a good kind of jive about it. Just one of the freakiest and more lively kind of songs on the album. It really kind of has that pitch as far as that kind of goes. So there's good hook on here, good perked up kind of energy. Freak, though, is a nice one. Pharrell is kind of on here, and this is another good pairing, is getting these T.I. and Pharrell songs. I want to say that he's paired up with him a few more times. I can't think of the exact ones. I think Pharrell paired up with T.I. on King or something like that, but this is the initial one. Pharrell kind of does his falsetto hook like he does for Jay-Z and Nelly and some of those type folks and Snoop Dogg. It's a pretty good example. It's too bad it didn't chart or something like that because it's a good example of a song. It's a nice bass song, has like a real relaxed, typical day kind of feel about it, and it's just got some good hangout vibes that are solid, and it's just got a nice hook, I would definitely have to say. And it's got a nice hook, I would definitely have to say. So it's pretty much, I would say that Freak, though, could pretty much compete with almost being a single. It's probably one of the more presentable songs on here. It just has a decent kind of commercial flair. It's just kind of a nice Freak, though, is just kind of a relaxed, typical, regular day hanging out with Bay and that type of stuff as far as that kind of goes. It's a good concept of just like a regular kind of atmosphere. So another nice one is My Life. This is an eerie kind of evening commute cut. It's a typical day type feel about it, and it's a breezy kind of residential bound type gem. So it's a good one for just kind of this regular kind of day, going to get snacks, getting beers at like the gas station, some of that type of stuff. Just a regular kind of overcast, maybe just typical kind of day of just being out and about in like a residential and neighborhood kind of area and that type of stuff. This lazy kind of day, just interesting enough just for some wind down and kind of evening commute as far as that kind of goes. It's really kind of, I like the kind of eerie kind of pitch of this beat too. It's another good one. It's interesting enough that Daz Dillinger was on here. I wasn't really expecting that one. It's kind of offhanded to kind of get him on here. It was a good concept. So yeah. Then the greatest is an almost song for me, but I kind of feel like this is like a lazy kind of late day commute, kind of solid, winding down track. I would definitely have to say, and it's just got a typical type fashion about it. This is another one that's very similar to My Life, not quite as eerie as My Life, but I feel like this kind of feels like a day where it's like sun is setting, 4:30, 5:30, 6 p.m., something like that. It's kind of a typical day, mailing off some bills, that type of stuff, picking up like some goodies, like some, some snacks, a couple 2 liters, some stuff like that, just some good stuff to kind of have in just a regular kind of day. I just kind of feel like, I mean, it's interesting kind of get the fact that T.I. actually did have some winding down kind of blue collar type tunes, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be blue collar, but the concept that some of this is kind of, it has some commercial bite towards it. Like, I feel like there's songs like Freak Though, Get Loose, Bring 'Em Out, chilling with my bitch, and like the greatest that really do have like some commercial kind of pitch about them. It's just a lot more presentability compared to the stuff that was on Trap Muzik, where Trap Muzik definitely had some trap boilers like 24s and Be Easy and some of those type ones, and like Look What I Got in some of those particular type moments. But I feel like this album really fleshed out its album cuts and just has a lot of overall great pitch. Just has some good lazy day kind of vibes. I definitely feel like this is a pretty regular album. I like just the kind of lackadaisical kind of regular feels about it, just kind of in that sense. But it also has like some good club songs like Get Loose, Motivation, ASAP, You Don't Know Me, and Limelight, and some of those type moments. So it's kind of a good kind of in between where it can be lazy kind of evening, regular mellow kind of days, and then it has like some pretty pitch kind of night out kind of gems as far as that kind of goes too. So basically, I'm gonna give this album me like in 13 and a half songs out of 17. I'm gonna give this album like a 9.5 out of 10. Pretty much that close. If I had liked the greatest just a bit better, which I do like it, but I'm just kind of still on the fence about it in ways. But I would just have to say, yeah, I'm still kind of on the fence about the greatest. If I had liked this song just a little bit more, I probably would have given this album like a 10. But it's just kind of the concept. This is one of T.I.'s best. This is better than Trap Muzik. It's up there with King and Paper Trail. Probably a little bit better than T.I. versus T.I.P. And I just would have to say this is a pitch of an album. And I feel like in terms of the social score is going to get a 10 out of 10 because it's just chock full of these moments. Even despite the fact that T.I. was knee deep in his hustle kind of ways, I still feel like this album has an even despite the fact that T.I. was knee deep in his hustle ways, I feel like this album does have some blue collar kind of moments like The Greatest and My Life and some of those type moments, and other ones like Freak Though and Chilling with My Bitch and some of those type moments. So it does kind of have like a presentable kind of commercial sense about it. And it did have some attempts to break into the spotlight, and it succeeded. I mean, it's definitely a concept that this was like a series of upswing. This was like a series of upswing albums for T.I. back in the day. This album, the PSC album, King, and some of those type moments just really got him in the spotlight pretty quickly. So 10 social. In terms of the future, like T.I.'s been kind of quiet. Supposedly he's going to retire and stuff. He's put out quite a few albums. There's definitely some more. There's some mixtapes I want to get to and stuff like that. So we're going to get to some more of these, but this is definitely a pretty crowning album. This is definitely an excellent one to definitely look into. It's chock full of hits, blue collar, and night out type stuff.